this chief operating officer of a museum or a facility of some kind, because that's not my path. I'm not, even though I'm married to someone who's mechanically inclined, I'm the opposite. I'm totally not that person. So I guess I would, the answer to your question, the long-winded answer to your question is that you have to pick your path to some extent. You know, you don't need to be the operations-minded person to be the CEO. You also can't be the chief financial officer if you don't have an accounting background. So depends on what you want to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe identifying the path.
Yes.
And then asking the folks up the chain, how do I get to where you are?
Yeah. Take somebody out to lunch who has the job that you strive for and say, how did you get there? You know, if somebody wanted to be in a role like I have, I could explain to them how I did that. Now, I don't know that you're going to get tapped by a client in a marketing firm to come run it. I think that was I was blessed to be in the right place at the right time. And
that happens too. I mean, that can happen a lot.
A little bit of kismet, a little bit of just God's hand and things, but I don't know that some of that you can't control.
Sure.
But I think that if you're always, focused on listening to that voice of what you're supposed to be, your place in the world and what you're supposed to be doing, then you'll get pulled into it if you're putting yourself constantly in that space. And doing, you're never wrong doing the right thing, as my husband always says. So
right, doing the right thing is always the right thing. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
That's a very good phrase. So shifting gears just a little bit here, Jen, we've talked about kind of that earlier in this, that we said, hey, nonprofits are kind of a great side hustle because you can kind of not necessarily make your own schedule, but you're not there 5 days a week. You're not there, 4 hours a night as a second job. And earlier in this, I called you, the most connected woman in Milwaukee. And from what you've told us, the stories, yes, that sounds like it, because you're in with the big companies, the Johnson Controls, the Harley Davidsons, everybody like that. From your past work, I think it's a pretty apt title. You do know everybody. So in the job seeking world, we know that it's not what you know usually, but it's who you know that gets things done and gets you the position. So for our listeners who are maybe not as connected or maybe not as up to par on their networking, I think I may be one of them, as compared to yourself, what's the number one thing that they can do that isn't volunteering at an organization that will help improve their networking?
Okay, so I'm going to give you one of my big secrets.
Ooh.
Yeah. And I use this in my work as a fundraiser. But I encourage everybody, right now more than ever, I think that this could be something that could be a game changer for people who are finding themselves unemployed or underemployed in these odd times, or at any time, really. Social media has made our world so different. In some cases, very, very bad. Rob and I, just for your listeners, Rob and I discussed prior to today how I have recently deleted my Twitter accounts because it feels like it's a bar fight, and I just don't want to be part of that world anymore. So I'm not even on Twitter anymore. It's just not worth it. But LinkedIn is an incredible, incredible resource. Even if you don't pay for the leveled up thing.
Sure, the premium.
Yep. Which I do. And if you can afford it, even at the basic level, I highly recommend it because it does open up a whole different access point to this incredible resource. LinkedIn is, if you go on LinkedIn and you look at your connections, don't just look at your connections, look at who they're connected to. And you can go deeper than just who you mutually are connected to. You can go through their list and see everybody they're connected to. So in my fundraising work, what I do is I open up a board director's profile of my nonprofit and I say, oh, so-and-so, here's, I open it up, I click on their link, I look at all their connections. And as I go down the list, oh, let me make note of the fact that they are really good, are connected with this CEO. Oh, they know this, director of the head of this foundation. Oh, this person's a trustee on the board of this foundation. I start making note of that. Then the next time I have an opportunity to chat with that board director, take them out to lunch, call them on the phone, have coffee with them. I have that list with me and I say, hey, by the way, I noticed on your LinkedIn profile that you're connected to so-and-so. Can you tell me more about that? and that person, and I'm curious to know them for XYZ. So in the case of fundraising, I say, I'm curious to know them because this nonprofit that they're a part of over here just raised X number of dollars from this person, and I want to see if they know them. Or maybe they run a business, and I'm saying, I'm seeing this business attending a lot of galas lately with tables. Do you think they'd want to buy a table at our gala too?
Sure. So it's almost like a sales process a little bit.
Yep. So you can do the same thing with that resource with your networking. If you have your eye on a company per se, and you've come to find out that one of your best friends is, connected to the HR director or the CEO or the operations officer or even the accountant or somebody at frontline sales. Hey, can you introduce me to this person? But that's just my little pitch for the day. So anyway.
No, but that was great though. I mean, and LinkedIn Premium is something we really haven't talked about on the show at all, because I try to do things for free, I guess.
Yeah, and you can.
Crazy way to do it, but but there are sometimes you can actually buy an extra resource and kind of boost things a little bit. So I'm really glad you mentioned that.
But you don't have to. So you will get a deeper access level to those lists. You will get kind of unfettered access to their list, but you don't even have to, because I'm telling you, there's so much opportunity out there. If you spend a little time first determining, the direction you're going in, what you want to do, and then going and finding where that is and who you're already. It's flattering to me that you call me the most connected woman in Milwaukee, but I don't think I am. I think I just know how to get to people.
That might even still retain the title, my friend. The knowledge base of how to do something is infinitely more valuable than actually just being given a portfolio. I mean, if you look at from a sales perspective, the account manager who is given 100 accounts to manage, that's fine. He's never going to have 100 more accounts if he doesn't know the process to get more. The person who's given 12 accounts to manage and knows how to get more is going to get that. So I think that's incredibly valuable for everybody. And, something just dawned on me too. Yeah. You mentioned LinkedIn Premium. If I recall correctly, at least when I first joined it a number of years ago, they had like a 30-day trial. So it's something, and I always make sure I use one of those old disposable credit cards for all of these things. Is it like $4.23 on this thing? It's great. And so there's your life hack from Rob today is keep an old gift card around to sign up for all of your online subscriptions. That way you don't get billed. But it's a great way to kind of access some of these things at the surface or maybe even deeper levels when it comes to like LinkedIn Premium. So that might be a good way for folks to get in there. So great piece of advice, Jen.
Well, and I want to also just add to that, just one other thing. You might be across the table or on the phone or whatever with your friend, your contact, and they might say, oh gosh, I don't really know that person. I just, accepted a request because we, met at a dinner party, or sometimes people just reach out and try to connect with people that they don't really know.
Yeah.
That happens. Don't let that thwart you. That's why you come with like a list of like 6 and you hope to get 2. Well, and as you become, the rock star of the podcast world, you're going to have all these people reaching out to you.
And I think that's a very good signal for anyone that if you're interacting with people on LinkedIn and you have folks who are not in your immediate circle kind of reaching out to you for either just to connect or if they actually have something to offer you that's maybe not salesy, I think that's that may be a indicator that you've hit on something.
The opportunity that I have in front of me is because I accepted a coffee request from someone that I knew very, very casually, who was in between things at the time 6 years ago. And it was, and I got together with her, and then she got what she needed, got back on her feet. Then we stayed connected through her position. And now I'm the one, talking to her about her hiring me. So that's
super cool. I know we talked about that in our prep call a little bit yesterday, which is great. So again, you land on your feet sometimes based on who you know.
Yeah.
And speaking of our prep conversation yesterday, and you mentioned the concept during that of getting the right person into a nonprofit, and who is that, I guess?
Yeah. We touched on this a little bit, that, for you, the person, I really encourage you to think about, your path and where you want to go. You don't have to have it all laid out. I didn't necessarily know in the beginning that I would be running organizations someday. But I knew that if I ever wanted the opportunity to, that fundraising was going to be a big part of it. So I spent a lot of time early in my career, as we've already talked about, just learning the fundraising process so that I could know it and be legitimate in that world. And then, whether or not I'm a leader someday is really going to be the next phase of me learning how to be a good leader and how to, do all those things. On the other side of it, though, for the industry, what we need more of in our industry, both at the staff and at the volunteer, / board director level, are more people who love people. I know that sounds weird to say.
No,
but
it's not weird. That's a skill.
Yeah, you have to. Unfortunately, what I have seen in my 25-year career, are there too many people that get involved in nonprofit work because they think that they're smarter than everybody, and they think that they can come in and rule it as opposed to love it and lead it. You really have to have, my preference is to work with people who have a service above self mentality or are willing to be coached into that mentality.
Okay.
When you have board directors and or leaders and staff of nonprofit organizations that are in it for selfish reasons, that hurts the culture, that hurts the mission, that hurts my ability to fundraise, quite frankly, because the savvy donor and community around that nonprofit can see right through that.
Interesting. Okay. So if you're in it, I don't want to say if you're in it for the money, because that's not quite accurate.
No, because there's money. Like we said, there's money there's money in it. When you become a valuable piece of the mission service puzzle, there is money in it. There's a lot of jobs, that pay over the national average.
Interesting.
So but almost like that, like you said, the middle manager. Now, depending on the field right now, the genre, there's less of those today, but in good times, there's lots of those positions, and you will do better than average. It is not uncommon to start at 40,000 if you have the right skill set.
Interesting. And that's not grunt work. That's
not
kind
work.
of the back office, if you will, and kind of up a
support
level. Okay.
Yep.
Got it.
Yeah. You can be an admin or, somebody. So the nonprofit industry is all over the board when it comes to their titles. I had in my past job, I had the same title as someone who has 5 years experience. So it's a little bit of a misnomer. Like it depends. It just literally depends on where you go. And how, sort of like how everybody in the banking industry is a vice president.
Gotcha. Okay. And that's
sorry. I love you, my banking friends. I'm just joking.
But that's maybe something that folks need to learn too, is that there is no real standardization, whether it's nonprofit or for profit, as to what a title is. And you could have somebody who is an assistant making close to 6 figures when in a different organization, an assistant makes, 35.6 a year, something like that.
And I've seen this recently where someone who was assistant to the executive director just got promoted to chief operating officer.
Whoa.
Yeah. So because in these organizations, the talent is that you do the work, you will be seen, because a lot of them aren't enormous. Now, whether or not she's making, I would say that she's a CEO, probably not making what the COO of Johnson Controls makes, obviously.
Right. And that's a huge multinational company, and
right. But she's got a good title now that will open doors with respectable people who will want to hear what she has to say, because, and I mean, on the shallow side of the world we live in, the title does matter.
Right. And I know from my experience too, it's definitely mattered that, you don't go in as account manager, you go in as, business development manager or something along those lines.
Yeah.
So interesting. Well, good deal. I think that has exhausted everything that I have for you today, Jen, but this is the opportunity in the show where we kind of twist things on its head a little bit. What didn't I ask you that people should know about either breaking into nonprofit, or if they're in one, bumping up?
Oh, good question. I would say that, what didn't we cover? Oh, I know what okay. So the one thing that I would say is be prepared for how political it can be. I was very naive, so I went into it thinking like, oh my gosh, this is going to be great. I can use my life to make a difference, and it can get a little ugly sometimes.